Hi there. Welcome to today's 30-minute yoga class for runners. Today we're going to focus on mostly the lower body and on both strengthening and stretching the main muscle groups that are being used by runners quite often. So we're going to focus on the hip flexors, on our quads, hamstrings, as well as our calves. And as I said earlier, we're not only going to stretch them, but also do a couple of pulsing movements so that we can strengthen them as well. There are two props that you'll need today. One is either a yoga block or a pillow. We're going to put this under our hips. And the other one is a strap. You can either use a yoga strap or you can perhaps find an old towel or an old t-shirt, anything that will allow you to hook onto the leg and be able to move with it. All right, let's get started. We're going to come to lie down for our first pose with the back on the mat, and we're going to take our strap with us. We're going to start here with some hip circles on each leg, which will allow us to really move those hip flexors and hopefully provide some relief for runners. So go ahead and pick up your left foot off the ground and hook the strap or the t-shirt, whatever you have, on the back of your foot. Lay back down, holding the strap into both hands. Gently begin to straighten your foot. Right foot stays on the ground. And the idea here is not necessarily that we're working towards a completely straight leg. Keeping the knee a little bit bent is all right. But the bottom of the foot is pressing up towards the ceiling. And let's start with circles to one side, just moving your foot while holding on to the strap with both of your hands. We'll start with small circles here. Allowing the hip to get a little bit of movement. And over time, start to enlarge your circles. Maybe you find that in order to hold on to the strap with these larger circles, that your elbows have to come up off the mat. Now let's stop and go in the other direction. We can continue with the big circles this time. And over time, start to get smaller and smaller with the circles. So we're in a way working backwards from where we started. Start to bring your circles so small that the leg starts to become still. Let go of the strap, unhook it from the foot. We're going to cross our left knee, our left leg on top of that right knee. And allow those knees to fall over to the right side. They don't need to touch the ground completely. It's okay if they're hanging in space. The right hand can come on top of the knees, or I should say the thighs. We don't want to have it on top of the knees. So just gently guide the knees down. Extend the left palm facing up in line with your shoulder. And begin to turn your head so that it also faces the left side of the mat. Running uses the core quite a bit. It allows our bodies to stabilize. It stabilizes the upper body and the lower body together because they do not make contact with each other. They're actually hanging in space, connected and stabilized by the core. So in today's class, we'll also do a couple of twists and a little bit of abdominal work, because that also makes an important part of a running posture. Come back to the center. Slowly start to bring the knees to face the ceiling. Unhook the left knee and we'll move over to the right side. So grab your strap again. Hook it on the bottom of the right foot. This time left foot stays on the mat. Slowly, while holding onto the strap, begin to extend the leg so that the bottom of the right foot faces the ceiling. Choose one direction and slowly start with small circles. Allowing your circles to get bigger in space. And let's go the other direction now. Continue with those big circles, slowly over time, working inwards to smaller circles. And finally, make the circle so small to the point where the leg just starts to stay still on top of the hip. Go ahead and bend into the knee, release the strap. This time we're crossing the right foot on top of the left. Letting the knees fall to the left side of the mat this time. You can of course use the left hand to gently guide them down. Right arm extends out in line with the shoulder, palm facing up. You can go ahead and also turn your head so that you're looking to the right side of the room. Here we're working our shoulders down to touch the mat. And we're working towards letting those knees touch the mat as well. Slowly start to look up towards the ceiling. Use that left arm to push your knees towards the middle. Uncross them. We come back here laying on our back. The feet are touching the yoga mat. We're going to do a little bit of hamstring work next, and this will be work on strengthening the hamstrings. Start by lifting slowly the pelvis up off of the ground. We're not focusing here necessarily about getting a lot of height. So you can stop wherever feels comfortable. And we want the feet here to be underneath the knees, so not overly close towards our bum, but also not overly far. Walk your shoulders underneath your body and just rest your hands wherever feels comfortable for you. It might be somewhere on the abdominal. You might have them on the mat with the palms touching the mat, pressing into the mat. And here you might already start feeling your hamstrings because they are working. We're going to think here about pulling our feet towards our torso. And the idea is that we're thinking about it and we're sort of taking the action, but nothing is happening because that is not the point. We're just engaging those hamstrings, and the mat doesn't allow us to go anywhere though. You might find that when you do that, when you drag your heels towards your torso, that your toes pick up off of the mat. So we'll just do these couple of pulses a couple of times. Drag the heels back towards the torso and release. You will feel the hamstrings, perhaps maybe even towards your core burning here. Let's do it again. Drag your heels towards the torso and release. One last time. Drag your heels toward your torso and release. Slowly lower your torso, your bum, your hips onto the mat. Come to face one of the sides of your mat, roll over, and let's come to our hands and knees. Hands are resting underneath the shoulders, and the hips are above our feet. In this position, we're actually going to walk our hands a little bit forward, and we're going to tent our fingertips, and slowly, while keeping a straight back, so the important aspect here is that we're not tilting our pelvis up towards the sky. Keeping a straight back, we're going to start to lower our torso towards the mat. Keep your hips above your knees, so no going back into a child's pose here. The idea is really that we're stretching through the front of the body, stretching those shoulders and chest muscles. And again, we're not flaring through the back of the pelvis here like this. We're keeping a straight back. Already at this position, I'm feeling a lot. So the idea is not to get as close to the mat as possible. Just stop wherever it feels like a good place for you. Slowly begin to peel the torso up and walk your hands so that they're once again underneath the shoulders. Pick up your right hand, open up to the side. Right hand is pointing up towards the ceiling. Twist. And lower the right hand back onto the mat. Left hand this time, open up the body. Face the left side of the mat. Left arm and maybe even the gaze looks up towards the ceiling. And lower back down. Let's do that one more time here. Right hand and gaze up to the ceiling. Keep the shoulders here away from the ears. Lower back down. And left hand, left gaze. Open up to the left side of the room. Chest is facing to the side. And lower back down. Tuck your toes. We're going to come into a couple of bear holds where we stay in this position and we actually pick up our knees off of the ground. And the idea here is to really keep your core strong and engaged. And go ahead, tuck your knees, push actively into the mat in your hands, and lift your knees off of the ground. The knees are not going very far here. Just even a millimeter off of the ground helps. Feel the core engaging. Lower abdomen is strong. Lower back is strong. Push the mat away with your hands and lower the knees back down. We're going to do this one more time for good measure and to really keep that core activated. Hands underneath the shoulders, knees underneath the hips, heels are tucked. Push strongly into your hands and lift the knees off the floor. And lower back down. Right away, we're going to keep moving. Bring both feet so that they're now framing your hands. And the toes are facing out. So we're coming into a squat form here. We're bringing our hands so that the triceps, the back of the arms are touching into the knees, into the inner thighs. And the idea here is this opposite pulling of head pulling up towards the ceiling and bum pulling towards the ground. Keep the chest open. Imagine somebody is pulling the chest towards the front of the room with a string. And slowly come to stand all the way back up to the front of the mat. Take your feet underneath your shoulders, hip distance apart. Shoulders are on top of hips, hips on top of the feet. Begin to transfer your weight into the right foot, slowly picking up the left and extend it in front of you. Height here does not matter. We're going to do pulses here, slowly lifting the left leg up towards the sky and bringing it back down. The left foot is active, right foot is pushing strongly into the mat. And you should feel this right in your hip flexor. Great. Now we'll stop with our pulses. Bend into the knee. Left foot is underneath the knee. Left knee in line with the hip. Twist the hip flexor internally. So that means that our knee is actually coming in towards our body. So if this is straight, our knee is coming in towards the center of our body and our foot is pointing out. Now we'll do the opposite. Externally rotate the hip. Knee is pointing away from the center of the body. Foot towards the center of the body. And bring the foot all the way back so that now our knee is aligned underneath our hips and our foot is behind us. Here we'll do pulses again, this time working with the hamstring and the glute. Squeeze through both and think about gently pulsing that foot up towards the sky. Great, we'll stop with the pulses and we'll plant that foot behind our right foot and just a little bit on the outside of that right foot. So we're coming in a sort of crisscross leg shape. The left foot is behind, so this means we're going to do a side stretch into the left side of the body. Lift the left arm up, take your right hand and grab that left wrist and start to pull very gently that left wrist, that left arm towards the right corner of the room. So from here, we're going to lift our torso back up to center, stacking it right on top of the hips. Pick up that left foot and start to pivot, opening up your body to the side of the mat, stepping the left foot to the back end of the mat. Toes are facing out, heels facing in, and we're gonna bend into our knees and drop our hips low. Come into goddess pose. Here we're gonna do some pulses, moving our hips up and down, working and strengthening those leg muscles. Hands can come wherever feels comfortable for you. Right, and now coming back up, stacking the torso on top of the hips. We're going to the back of the mat, starting to pivot and coming to stand to face the back of the mat. All the weight is in the left foot. We're gonna move and do the same on the other side. Right foot picks up and is actively pointing up towards the sky. We're going into our pulses here, working and strengthening those hip flexors. Great. Bend into that right knee. Put it in line with your hip. Externally rotate, pulling the knee away from the body. Then internally rotate the hip, knee towards the center of the body. Knee comes below our hips, extending our foot backwards. Let's do our glute pulses here. Great. Step the foot back, behind, and on the outer edge of the right foot. This time we're stretching our right side. Right hand towards the sky, left hand on the right wrist. And gently bend over, feeling a stretch in the right side of the body. And come back up to center, picking up that right foot, opening up to the side again, goddess pose. This time though, we're gonna go into toe raise pulses. So coming up onto your toes, picking up the heels off of the mat. And we're gonna pulse here as well, bringing the heels down and back up without touching the floor. Down and back up. Ooh, these are intense. All right. Heels find the ground. Rise up. And we return both feet facing the front of the mat. So this was the main sort of strengthening portion of the yoga class today. And now we're going to move into a little bit more of that stretching of those lower body muscles. So bring your feet wider than hip distance, toes facing out, and begin to drop into that yogi squat that we've come to before. Chest pulling towards the front of the mat, and backs of the arms pressing into the thighs. Lower all the way down so that you're sitting on the mat. Before we go into our stretches, let's activate our core one last time by doing a V sit-up. So the body's going to take a sort of V shape, leaning back with the torso and slowly picking up both feet off of the mat. Hands can come wherever feels comfortable to you, holding onto the thighs or out in front of you. Really engage the core here to keep yourself stable in space. Great. And lower your feet back down. Let's actually extend the feet all the way out in front of us, backs of the legs touching the mat. Go ahead and pick up the flesh from underneath your sit bones. And just start to lean and fold over your legs. Stretching our entire backside of the body, not just the hamstrings, but also the back and the neck here are getting a nice stretch. And slowly begin to come upwards, stacking the shoulders again on the hips. Lean over to your right side, perhaps supporting yourself also with that right hand, and start to pick up the right foot and actually putting the front side of the foot down on the mat right next to your glute. We're going to do a quad stretch here, and you might already feel it just like this, so please stay here. It can be quite intense. If you're feeling it a bit too much in the knee, I would suggest keeping the foot a little bit farther away from your glute. However, if you feel like you do want a little bit more of a stretch, experiment with leaning back here. On your hands, maybe on your forearms. If it feels comfortable to you, leaning all the way back is also possible. You're leaning back, gently start to lift yourself up. Lean over to the right side again and help your left foot bring it to meet the right. Let's do the other side. This time we're leaning over to the left, picking up the right hip, the right foot off the mat, setting the front edge of the foot right next to our glutes, and starting to lean back if we feel like we need that extra stretch. Gently come back out of the stretch, resting your right foot next to your left. We're gonna lie down now and actually stay down until the end of the class into our Shavasana. So please bring your block with you. Lie all the way back down so that the whole back of your body is touching the mat. We're going to place both of our feet on the mat. And we're going to come into a hamstring stretch. So picking up the left foot off of the mat, we're going to cross that left ankle on top of the right thigh. Pushing, not physically with our hand, pushing that left knee away from our chest. And you should really start to feel that stretch on the outer thigh here and perhaps even into the glute. This is enough, stay here. If you feel like you need more, you can pick up that right foot off the mat and start to bring it in towards the chest. Perhaps even grabbing the thigh. And this whole time, we're working that left knee away from the chest. And slowly start to lower that right foot if you had it up. And gently uncross the left foot and set it back onto the mat. Let's do the other side. Right foot picks up, right ankle on top of the left thigh. That right knee is pulling away from our chest. If you need some more, pick up the left foot, bring it in towards the chest. Perhaps even threading your hands through to pull that thigh in closer. Shoulders stay on the mat. And lower the left foot if you were holding it. Uncross the right foot and rest it back down. Grab that block or that pillow now, and we're going to try to get a little bit of a nice stretch through the front of our hips and our hip flexors. And the way we're going to do that is by coming into a bridge pose, but it's going to be a bridge that's supported by a block, which allows us to remain there for a long time and really relax into the stretch. So feet placed on the mat. Slowly start to push into your feet, lifting the hips away from the mat, up towards the sky. No need to go very far, just enough so that you have enough room to slip the block or the pillow underneath your hip bone. And experiment here with what part feels okay to you. We all have different anatomies. And just relax into the stretch. I know it can feel quite a bit intense. So perhaps just staying here, even if it's for a couple of breaths, is enough for you today. You're welcome to stay here into Shavasana until we've finished with the class. But if it's too intense, please judge for yourself and just step out of it when you're ready and come down to lie on your back. If you feel like you'd like a little bit more opening through the front of the body, what I like to do is extend one foot so that is fully extended, reaching towards the front of the room. And if that's still not enough, you can go ahead and do both feet. I am going to come back in a couple of minutes, allowing us some silence and integration in Shavasana. Stay here if this feels comfortable. If not, just come into your regular Shavasana. If you still have the block underneath your hips, gently start to move your toes and fingertips. And slowly, very slowly, make sure you bring both of your feet on the ground, lifting the hips up, removing the block or the pillow, and as slow as you can, resting the back and the hips onto the mat. Come to roll to one side of your body. And using your top arm, push into the floor and lift yourself to sitting. I love stretching and strengthening my lower body. Even though I'm not an avid runner, I know that we use our lower body all the time, and it's really important that we take care of it. And especially so if you're runners, because it's getting a lot of use. I wanted to thank you for joining me for the class today, and I hope to see you again soon.